Hi, everybody. This week, we're going to look at lessons 41 through 44. So let's get started. This week, you're going to need your lessons manual, the student worksheets, the math card games manual with the game cards, the AL abacus, a dry erase board, the math balance, a Casio SL450S calculator, and the place value cards. We are only going to use the tens place value though. This week, we will work on the distributive property, order of operations, place value, and rounding. Let's go ahead and turn to lesson 41. For lesson 41, your child will use the math balance to discover the distributive property and how it works. Take a look at the section called Multiplying on the Math Balance. Let me walk you through this section by showing you how it will work. Okay, so for the first part of this activity, you're going to have your child put an equation on their math balance. 6 plus 4 equals 10. So they will put a 6 and a 4 on this side and a 10 on this side. And then you're going to say, now, if you were to multiply each of these numbers by 3, how would that look? So you're going to end up putting a total of 3. So you have 1 on there, and we're going to add 2 more on each of these numbers. So 6 times 3 plus 4 times 3 equals 10 times 3. And they are going to discover that that does balance. Although my balance is a little off. There we go. So that does balance. After your child completes that activity, you're going to want to write that equation on the board. 6 times 3 plus 4 times 3 equals 10 times 3. And then you're going to ask, would it balance if you multiplied each number by 4 instead of 3? Now, this next section will demonstrate the distributive property. Here, we're going to pull out the numbers that are being multiplied by 4 and put those in parentheses on one side of the equation, and we are going to see if it equals the way we solved the last problem. So it's a little confusing, so let me show you how that works. Okay, so for this next problem, it's a little trickier. What we're going to do is take a look at that 3 plus 5 in parentheses, and we're going to have our child put the 3 plus 5 on the math balance. So we're going to do 3 plus 5. Now, according to the equation, everything inside that parenthesis, 3 plus 5, needs to be multiplied by 4. So everything that's on the math balance so far needs to be multiplied by 4. So we already have 1 weight on 3. We're going to have another 2, 3, and then I like to put it in the back so it doesn't fall off as easy, 4. And we're going to do the same thing with 5. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now we have 3 plus 5 4 different times. All right, now we're going to try to balance that with the other side of the math balance. We know that we have 3 times 4. So I'm going to put 4 on the 3 here. 3 taken 4 times. And then we are also going to have another number taken 4 times. Now, what number is that going to be? And we're going to let our child think about it, but simply by looking at the math balance, they're going to see, oh, I need 4 tiles or 4 weights on 5. 1, 2, 3, and then 4, and we find that it balances. On the top of the second page of this lesson, you will review the different properties that your child has learned so far. The first property that you learned was the commutative property. Now, just so you remember what the commutative property it says that when multiplying 2 digits, you can switch the order. So if you have 8 times 7, That would be the same as 7 times 8, and you will still get the same answer regardless of the order of those numbers. If you want to review that commutative property, it was discussed in lesson 18. The other property your child learned so far is the associative property. Now, the associative property deals with 3 or more numbers that are multiplied together. And many times there is grouping involved, like parentheses. In the associative property, your child learns that it does not matter which order, just like in the commutative property. It does not matter what order the numbers are or how they are grouped. If you have 3 numbers multiplied together, they're going to equal the same amount regardless of the order. Your child learned about the associative property as it was discussed in lesson 24, if you need to review it. There is a paragraph about halfway down the page, on the second page, under the explanation section, that says this: although it is helpful for the child to know these names, the associative and commutative properties, it is not necessary to specifically identify with each property. However, the concept is essential to understand. So at this time, your child does not need to memorize the terms, just understand how the concept works. Now, I want you to look about halfway down on the second page. It says this: it is true that when we add 2 numbers and then multiply, that we can multiply each number and then add. That is what the distributive property is, and what your child discovered when using the math balance in the last activity. The example below that statement might help you understand it a little bit better. Let me show you how that works. So here is the problem as shown in the middle of the second page of the lesson. Now what we're going to want to do is distribute the 5. We're going to distribute the 5 into this problem here. So we're going to do 5 times 4, which we have here, and then we're also going to do 5 times 2, which we have over here. And then we are going to subtract the 2 numbers. When you get later on in algebra, pre-algebra, you're not going to put the times 5 over here. You're going to also see it 5 and bumped up next to the parenthesis. But for this particular activity, since we're still learning very basic pre-algebra concepts, we're going to keep that times 5 so your child understands that. But that's basically the distributive property in a nutshell. After that activity has been completed, your child will complete worksheet 26 on their own if they're able. If your child needs to, they can use the math balance to solve the problems on the bottom of the worksheet. The card game for this lesson is called Lowest in Corners, which you actually played last week. Let's go ahead and turn to lesson 42. If your lesson manual was printed in 2017 or before, there is a correction for this lesson. So you're going to want to double check our corrections page and make sure you have made all of the necessary changes to your materials. The warm-up for this lesson is the top box of worksheet 27. Now this lesson will have your child work with order of operations as they learn to use the calculator, including the memory keys. So for a quick review, here is how the order of operations work, or the order of the operations. You first do anything in parentheses. Now the next thing that you do is the exponents, but we have not learned exponents at this point, so we won't worry about that. So start with the parentheses. After you do anything in the parentheses, then you're going to do the multiplication and division calculations. And then finally, you do the addition and subtraction calculations. Look at the section called Order of Operations. First, you're going to write out on the whiteboard the 2 different problems as listed. N equals 2 plus, in parentheses, 3 times 4, and you're going to write out M equals 2 plus 3 times 4. Then you're going to have your child calculate the totals based on their knowledge on order of operations without using a calculator. So for these problems, your child is going to get the answer of 14. Then you're going to have your child use the calculator to find the answer and see what the calculator says. Now, when your child uses the calculator and types the problem as written, they're going to get the answer of 20. By the way, if your child is using a scientific calculator, they will get the answer of 14 because scientific calculators automatically apply the order of operations. Here is where you're going to tell your child that basic calculators do not apply the order of operations automatically. So when you are using the calculator, your child will need to learn how to apply the order of operations while typing in the equation. To make complex problems easier and without writing numbers down along the way, your child is going to learn how to use the memory keys. Because using the memory keys can be a little complicated at first anyway, I will demonstrate a few of the problems for you. The first problem I'm going to demonstrate is listed towards the bottom of the first page, and it is 8 times 8 plus 7 times 5. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate how to do the problem 8 times 8 plus 7 times 5 on the calculator. Now there are specific directions at the bottom of the first page of lesson 42. So first off, you want to make sure that it's turned on. You can do that by hitting all clear. And then you're also going to want to hit, if you see an M up in this top corner, you're going to want to hit memory clear. And I usually hit it several times and then all clear, just to clear everything out. Then we're going to do 8 times 8. And then we're going to hit the memory plus button. And we'll put that M up there on the top. We don't need to hit an equal sign at this point. We'll just go straight to the 7 times 5. And then we're going to add that to the memory. So we're going to hit the M plus. And then we're going to hit the memory recall. And that shows us 99. If you look at the top of the second page, there is an explanation of the role of the M plus and the M minus keys. Read along with me. The M plus key adds values into the memory bucket. To add additional amounts into the memory, you'll use the M plus. To subtract amounts from the memory, you're going to use the M minus. So basically, you have the M plus key has two roles. The first role is to simply put a number into a memory. The second role is to add what you're calculating into the running total of the memory, whereas the M minus key pulls quantity out of what is in the running total of the memory. Then you're going to give your child worksheet 27 to work on. Now, because this is a little confusing for some parents and some kids, I will show you how to work through some of these problems that you're going to work on together with your child. Here is a demonstration of the problems as shown in the middle of the second page. So I'm going to show you how to do some of the problems in the middle of the second page of this lesson, just to give you an idea how to work various problems. The first one I'm going to walk through is the 6 plus 17 times 8. Now we know with the order of operations, we have to do the multiplication first. So for this, when we're entering it into the calculator, we're going to start with the multiplication portion, which is 17 times 8. And then we're going to add the 6. And then equals, and that gives us the 142. The next problem we're going to take a look at is the problem, it starts with parentheses 17 plus 35 times 8. So what we're going to do is there is no memory key needed for this. We're simply going to do the 17, like order of operations, the 17 plus 35 equals, and then we're going to multiply that times 8. Again, equals, and it equals 416. The next problem is 7 times 6 plus 7 times 3 plus 7 times 11. So here we're going to do the 7 times 6, and we're going to put that in our memory. So this is where we're going to use our M plus key. And then we're going to go straight into the 7 times 3. And again, we're going to put that into our memory key. And then we're going to go straight into the 7 times 11. And we're going to add that answer into the memory key. And we're going to see what's left in our memory key, and it's 140. The next problem I'm going to show you is the 7 times, and in parentheses, 6 plus 3 plus 11. Now remember, on the calculator, or in order of operations, we need to do what's in the parentheses first. So we're going to start there. We're going to do the 6 plus 3 plus 11 times 7 equals. Okay, so if you look at towards the middle, lower end of the middle of the second page, I'm going to walk you through a few more problems. The first one I'm going to walk you through is the 3 plus 5 in parentheses times 4 plus 7 in parentheses. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a 3 plus 5. We're going to put that in our memory. Then we're going to do the 4 plus 7. Now we're going to take that total times what is in our memory. So we're going to hit that times our memory recall and then equal. And that will give us the 88. The next one I'm going to show you is the one right underneath it. 3 plus 5 times 4 plus 7 in parentheses. Remember, don't forget to clear out your memory and then hit all clear. So the first thing we're going to do is what is in parentheses, right? So we're going to do 4 plus 7. And then we're going to take that total times 5. Then we're going to add 3 to that. And our total is 58. The next one we're going to do is the one right underneath it. And again, clear, all clear, remainder clear, memory keep clear. The next one we're going to do is the 3 plus 5 times 4 plus 7. Now remember what comes first? The multiplication. So we're going to do 5 times 4, and then we're going to add to it 3 and add 7. And that gives us a total of 30. Clear it out. The last one is the 3 plus 5 in parentheses times 4 plus 7. And we're going to actually follow this equation exactly as it's written. We're going to do the 3 plus 5 times 4 plus 7 and get a total of 39. The math card game for today is P21, Squares memory game. Now there is not a blog for this game, but you did play it in lesson 29. You may also want to add a multiplication math facts card game if your child is still working on learning those or getting faster with those math facts. All right, well, let's go ahead and turn to lesson 43. The warm-up section is reviewing the calculator and completing the top box of worksheet 28. Under the section, reviewing place value, your child is going to be, well, reviewing place value. If your child is struggling with place value or has forgotten some of the concepts, you're going to want to spend a little time reviewing that section. Add more questions as you need. You may also want to play the game Can You Find as well. Look under the section called Partitioning Numbers. Here, you're going to have your child use the part whole circles to break down place value. So you're going to start with looking at the number 123. And your child is going to break down 123 into 3 different part circles. One of the circles is going to be for the 100s. So they're going to put 100 in the 1 part circle. And then in another part circle, they're going to put the 10s. And so they're going to put 210 in the next part circle. And the final circle, they're going to put their 1s. And so they're going to have 3 1s in that part circle. At the bottom of the first page, you're also going to look at the number 497, and you're going to do the same thing, breaking it apart. 4 hundreds, 9 10s, and 7 1s. On the top of the second page, you're going to switch it up a little bit. Here, you're going to mix up the place values by putting them in a different order, and your child will find the total. Take a look at the first part whole circle where it has 246. You are going to write in the 6 1s, the 200s, and the 4 10s, and your child is going to come up with the number 246. You're going to do the same thing for the whole number 8,000 709. Now notice there is one empty circle, completely blank. You are going to leave it empty because there is no tens. Now you're not going to want to put 0 tens, as this is kind of a test to see if your child understands how many digits are required for the number. If your child does not understand that the tens is missing, they may squish this and it may look like 8, 7, 9 because there's no 10 listed. And you're wanting to make sure they understand that 8,000 should have 4 digits. So you'll want to, if your child struggles with that, you're going to want to review that section for a little bit, making sure they understand that when the place value is not represented, then you're going to want to put a 0 in that missing place value. Now look at the section called place value on the calculator. I absolutely love this activity. It will help your child consider what place value needs to be added to, as well as by how much. And this is an excellent activity to help your child develop some critical thinking. Now make sure that you give your child time to think through the problem and figure out how to solve it. Don't be too quick to help your child out. Let them think through it. Let them struggle through it a little bit. Otherwise, you're reducing that opportunity for your child to stretch and learn. If you find your child is getting sort of frustrated with that, then you can help your child just a little bit simply by asking some questions. All right, after you finish that section, you will have your child finish worksheet 28. And as always, the answers, the solutions to those problems are in the lesson manual. The math card game for this lesson is Find the Factors game. And there is a blog for this game, but you also played it for lessons 34 and 38. All right, well, let's go ahead and turn to lesson 44. Lesson 44 will introduce rounding. You will introduce rounding by talking about estimating. So you'll want to see the section estimating and definitely read that section to your child. Look down at that section called rounding to tens. So you're going to give your child the place value cards and the abacus. And you're going to have your child pull out only the tens place value cards. So it'd be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. So you're only going to use those for this particular lesson. Then you're going to have your child enter 32 on the abacus. And then you're going to have your child find what number, 30 or 40, is closest to the number 32. And your child should say 30 is closer to 32. Now on the top of the second page, you're going to do the same thing for quantities 59, 87, and 14. In the middle of the second page, you will see that you will also ask your child to round 25. Now let them answer however they think. They may go 20, they may go 30. Let them do whatever they will, but then read that section after that, which says, 25 is in the middle and could go either way, but most of the time people round it up to 30. Now notice, in this entire activity, you are not telling your child the rule to memorize, but you're helping them understand how rounding works. Up to this point, you're simply asking questions and helping your child figure it out on their own. You will continue some rounding lessons later on, and actually in lessons 45 and 46 as well. So don't worry if your child's not grasping it solidly yet. This is just the introduction to rounding. The math card game for lesson 44 is the rounding war game. So they'll get plenty of practice with this. We do have a blog for it, and it is called 2020 Summer Game Number 11, Rounding War. You may also want to add a multiplication math card game if your child is still learning their math facts, multiplication math facts. Now, next week is Thanksgiving break, so I will not be posting a video next week. If you are behind in your lessons, you can use this time to catch up on those lessons. If not, if you're right on target, then I highly recommend that you continue to play multiplication math card games about 15 minutes a day to help your child learn and retain those math facts. Multiplication is really hard, and if you take a whole week off right when your child's starting to get some traction with it, they're going to lose and you're going to get you'll have to backtrack a little bit. So keep up those math facts during the break. As always, if you have any questions or concerns about a lesson, or if your child is struggling with something, give us a call or email us. We are here to help. Have a very happy Thanksgiving, and I will see you in a couple weeks when we go over lessons 45 through 48. Bye, everybody.